Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Process Mining and Cost Accounting blog post series. Before we dig into details of this blog post where we focus on process mining, I would like to start with a short review of what we have done in the previous task. So if you remember the first blog post, then we had a look at process mining in general. What are the advantages, for what purposes it can be used, and here we found 4 different elements. The first one to start with is to optimize business processes, of course. Then we had a look at process automations and task mining. That's what we investigated in the first post. Then we have, of course, the possibility to identify risks, to comply with some regulations, and then finally, next time we will have a look at fixed cost and allocations and these things. And we started here in the Process Advisor and Power Automate. And again, here's the differentiation between process mining on the left side, that's the focus of today, and task mining on the right side, where we make recordings to identify possibilities to automate things. That was the focus the last time. Okay, so today we focus on process mining. So basically on this part. And the steps that are involved in this process mining part, they are listed here. So you typically start with selecting and connecting your data. Then you transform it, you map it, you save it, and then you analyze it in the MineIt desktop app if you want. So step 5 is optional. The other ones you should do. So how does it look like? Well, first step is to select and connect the data. And here, the steps that you see here in Power Automate are not exactly the same that I used, because I felt, okay, this connection, this is still the first step. Once you have your data connected, then you can transform it. And this transformation happens in a similar way that you might know from Power BI. Then we have the mapping of the data, and here we need 3 elements. We need the case ID, the activity, and the event start. These are the mandatory fields that we have to map here. So on the left hand side, these are your data from your file. Then we have here the mapping, and then the data can be analyzed. And you can investigate them here in Power Automate. Or if you want to do a deep dive into the data, then you can open the MineIt app, this one here, and then do some additional analysis that are not available in the Power Automate functionality. Okay, now if we talk about process mining, then we have 2 possibilities. The first one is we can analyze Power Automate flows, or we can analyze data that we uploaded, for example, from a different ERP or CRM system. So if we talk about analyzing Power Automate flows, then it's very easy, because if you have a flow designed, you just have to click here on this Process Advisor to get suggestions. How does your process look like? What can you automate? What is the general flow? And where are bottlenecks? So very easy. The disadvantage of that is you cannot analyze this data in the MineIt desktop app, at least not at the moment. Might change in the future, but as I'm recording this, it's not possible. The other option is to use your own process data and to bring your process data, for example, from your ERP system into this Power Automate Process Advisor. We have different templates, but you can also just upload data that you prepared elsewhere. And the advantage is, of course, you can analyze the data either in Power Automate or in the desktop app for a deep dive. And that's what I want to show you next in my demo system. So let's switch the systems and then have a look at how this works. Okay, so I'm here in Power Automate. I opened my flows and I just created a very basic flow. And the idea is here not to have a very detailed or specific process, but the idea is just to collect some data that I can use then for analyzing. So this is actually not something I'm using in my environment. It's just to demonstrate you how you can use this process advisor. And the starting point is here on the right hand side, where you just select your flow and then click on this suggestion button. And if you're doing that, then the system will automatically analyze the data, the process data of your flow, how often it was running, where you see bottlenecks, and so on. Yeah? So you can analyze it here or in the time analysis way here. Yeah? So that's a very nice and very easy way how to find out what might be wrong in one of your processes. Okay, then the other option is, second possibility, to bring your own data and analyze them. And that's what I want to show you next. So I'm opening here again the process advisor. And what we are doing is we start from scratch. Yeah? So we start, and now I just give it a name. Let's say demo blog post English demo 1. Yeah? And because at the moment we don't have any data, so I'm using here the sample data from Microsoft. I download it, yeah, and that's what I will use later on. Yeah? So let's go and create this thing. And now the first step is to make a connection to the sample data that we just downloaded. So here I can say, okay, I want to have the file that I just downloaded. I open it. It gets the data. Yeah? And then we can go to the next step, where we get a preview of the data and where we can do transformations. Of course, I mean, with this sample data, I'm not interested in doing any transformation. But if you're familiar with Power BI, yeah, or even in Excel, yeah, you should be familiar with this transformation that you see here, where you can add columns, you can do calculations and whatever. Yeah? But for our purposes, we just click next. And now comes the important element, where we have to map at least the case ID, the activity, and the event start. Yeah? So, and to do that, yeah, let's say the case ID, that's this field here. Then we have the activity, that's this one. And then we need an event start. So we have here an event start. Yeah, we have additional information like an end timestamp, so you can also end that. You can also classify the resource and so on. Yeah. And then once you are done with the mapping, then you just click Save and Analyze. And this will take a while because it will basically process the data and then generate all of the files and graphics that you are used to. Yeah? Because this will take a while, I will switch now to the MyNet app and open it, because I have done this already before for the German language recording, so that we do not have to wait so long and can see what is the outcome. Yeah? So I have here process mining blog post 1, the first part. So the outcome of what we are currently doing will be a view, a default view that you can modify, for example, by setting filters and then save it. Yeah? For example, if you want to do comparisons. Yeah? But what you see here is basically similar to what we saw before. Yeah? We have here a kind of process map. If you want, you can switch here and focus on the resource, so that you find out, hey, where it might be a bottleneck. You can also dig into that, get more information, and so on. Then if we continue, and if we reset probably the filters, activity name, yeah, then you can see here in this part a kind of timeline. So if you play this, then you get an idea what was going on, and just see how the time changes and how the graphics and the numbers change a bit. So this gives you an idea how is the process flow through this process. There might be bottlenecks, who is responsible, and so on and so forth. So it's quite nice. Personally, I'm not a fan of that, because I prefer here the other elements more. So if you click on the statistics part, then you can really see what was going on. You can also filter here to analyze specific elements only, and then dig into that. Or what we also have is, here we have the root cause analysis, where we can say we make a demo based on the case duration, and then maybe the active time. Let's see if this works. And then you can have here different cases, for example, to find out, hey, why was a process taking so long, and for how many cases, and so on. And of course, we have here the variants, where you can see, hey, are there processes that are repeated? For example, here this reject invoice, here's again, here's again, here's again. So you can go into that and then see, hey, what's going on? What are the cases, the table, and if you want, you can even investigate it in a kind of Gantt chart. So a lot of possibilities, and of course here there's a comparison, because you can save this variant that you have. So if I'm going back here, it will ask me, do you want to save it? I don't want, but I could save it and then do a comparison, for example, of different variants or different processes or filters that I applied. All of that is possible, and can be realized with this Meinit app. And here you see now is also our English language demo that we just created is now finished, and you can do the same analysis here. So as I mentioned, the Meinit desktop app is for the deep dive analysis. If we go back into Power Automate, we also get an analysis, but I would say this is for an initial investigation. You see also here a map, you can see the different variants, but you do not have all these comparisons and these root cause analysis features available. So it's a kind of lightweight demo maybe, or lightweight analysis, let's say. And if you want to go deeper, you typically end up here in this Meinit desktop app. Okay, so that's it for the first part. Now let's go back to my PowerPoint, where I want to show you how we can analyze actually data from our operational systems, and not do a demo based on demo data. So here a short review, and the advantage that we saw of using process data from our own systems. And the advantage is, of course, that you can use Power Automate or the Meinit desktop app to analyze the data. Now the big question is, how can we get our process mining data from finance and operations or any other system that you have? And what I tried specifically for Dynamics 365 Finance is, I tried to use one of these connectors. I tried to use virtual entities, I used other entities, I tried to use templates and so on. But all of this did not work for me, because either the entity was not available, or the virtual entity not, or there was no template. So at the end of the day, I ended up with electronic reporting that I used to extract the data and then use it for analyzing them in the process mining application. And that is something I want to show you, and to give you an idea how this works and how you can apply it in your specific case. Okay, so we are here now in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, and I opened the Open Vendor Invoices. Why did I do that? Well, because I recorded a couple of invoices with the help of a workflow, and now I want to analyze the process. How was it going and flowing through the workflow? So let's take an example, this invoice here. And if I click correctly, then it should hopefully open. Yep. Then we can have a look at the original document, at the details, and here you can see then the workflow history. And that's actually what is interesting for me. So the workflow history shows you basically the person who was doing something at a specific time, something that was executed automatically. So what I'm interested in is here this middle part that is called tracking details list. And that's something I want to analyze, but not only for a single invoice, but for multiple invoices. So how can I do that? Well, of course, if you know my previous blog post, then you know that I'm doing a lot with electronic reporting. So I created here a report. If you look at the designer, then I'm just extracting some of the data here, like the instance ID, the context, the tracking type, and so on, some basic information from this workflow history. So these are the fields that I want to export. Then in the model mapping, I define the data source. Where do I want to get the data from? And here in the middle you see it's the workflow tracking table. So what did I do here? I was using here the elements plus the relations to bind the data here. So for example, the instance ID can be found in the tracking status table. The name can be found here directly in this table, and so on. What is important is here this document element, because the document contains the vendor and the invoice ID. So later on I will not export this field, but I split it into the invoice and the vendor ID by making use of the formulas that you can see here. So this was the second part. And then of course we also need an output, and I used Excel here. So if we go into the designer, then you should be familiar here on the left hand side with the Excel sheet. These are the fields on the left hand side that I want to export, and here in the mapping section you can see the fields that I mapped. So and if we run that, then you can analyze the data later on in the Process Advisor. But because I do not want to analyze all of my invoices, I just said, okay, I want to analyze them starting from this date. So if I hit OK here, I will get an Excel document. So it's downloaded. And this document can then be used here in Power Automate, in the Process Advisor. So let us start that. Let's say blog post demo English number 2. Now I say create, and because I have now the electronic reporting data, I can connect them from my Excel workbook. So I'm just saying, okay, I'm using this here. And also here I do not want to transform the data or do some conversions or something. I just want to say, okay, I use the data from table 1. That's in my sheet. You can already see here the elements. Then I can say next. And here, as before, you could make conversions. So you do not have to be very detailed with the electronic report if you want. But you can still do conversions here. And once this is done, now we are at the step 4, and that's the mapping. The mapping thing, where we need to find the case ID. The case ID is my instance ID. What is that? Well, if you go into workflow history, that's the instance ID. That is the unique number for a specific invoice that is processed. So let's say, okay, that's our case ID. Then, okay, tracking context. Well, let's say, okay, that's our activity. And And then we have also an event start. Yeah, and that's my created date time value. That's my event start. And the user can be, for example, the resource. And this is the way how you can make your conversions and the mapping. And then once you're done, you can analyze the data. And what will happen is, of course, you will get a map and a detailed analysis here directly in the Process Advisor. But because we uploaded the data, we will also be able to analyze the data in the Minint app. So let's open that one. And because, again, I do not want to wait so long, I did that already before for the German language post. So let's see, here is the blog post, the second part for the German version, with the same data that we exported through electronic reporting. And then you can get here kind of analysis based on, for example, the user. I have only 2, so it is not that interesting. Or you can say based on the invoice ID. Or you can say I want to analyze some tracking type or document type or whatever you have. And that is important for you to have already in mind what you want to analyze, because this is the data that you need to export with the help of electronic reporting. So make sure you have all the data in your electronic report that you want to analyze later on here. Then of course you can go through here statistics, root case analysis, and so on and so forth, to get a deep dive into what's going on and where might be issues. And again, if this is hopefully finished now, we can see it here. So we can also see a summary of our process here directly in the Process Advisor for an initial investigation. But as I said, if you want to dig into details, then maybe the Minint desktop app is the better tool for you to analyze things. So if you go back, then I do not want to save the changes. If you save the changes, then you get a new view here that you can use to compare. And now you see here, this is the demo number 2. It's now finished and also available here, where you can do all of your analysis that you're used to. And again, if you want to make use of this application here, please have a look at the documentation, because there are really a lot of things that you can do in regards to visualization, to variants, to filters, to settings that you can do, and so on and so forth. Okay, but now let's go back to the PowerPoint to close this blog post and then have a look at what we are going to do in the next session. Okay, so before we have a look at what we are going to do in part 3, let's quickly review what we have done. So first, we analyzed a Power Automate flow, just out of the box, a flow that we designed to get insights with the help of the Process Advisor. Second thing that we did was we analyzed demo data that Microsoft provided. That was interesting to get an idea how the whole tool works, and to see how you can analyze it in Power Automate or in the Minint desktop app. And then finally, we had a look at how we can export data from our operating system, the system of records, and then import the data into the Process Advisor to analyze what's going on. For example, with our vendor invoices, how we record vendor invoices, how we, if you have another process, maybe let's say you send collection letters to customers, then all of these things where you have workflows, that's something that you can easily export and analyze. So what we are going to do next is I will show you how you can connect it to a Power BI workspace. That will be important because we want, at the end of the day, make use of process mining data for cost accounting purposes. So we want to see how we can use it for allocation things. and then use an activity-based costing approach. But for today, I would like to thank you very much for listening and watching. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you then in part number 3.